Welcome to the Industrial Talk Podcast with Scott McKenzie. Scott is a passionate industry professional dedicated to transferring cutting-edge, industry-focused innovations and trends while highlighting the men and women who keep the world moving. So put on your hard hat, grab your work boots, and let's go.
Well, welcome. Coffee in hand, hard hat on, steel toe boots on. I am ready to hit it. You know, this is the Industrial Talk Podcast. My name is Scott McKenzie, and I am so glad that you're here. This is where we celebrate the industry professional and companies with a big vision for the future, the trailblazers and leaders, the people and companies that get it done. You know, in short, I'm just a big cheerleader for that industry professional and those companies. So thank you. Thank you very much for being here. Now, this podcast, this interview is a continuation of my visit that I was at last week. Was it last week? Yeah, last week. The 2017 Gulf Coast Industry Forum. Now, if you remember correctly, if you have any interest in the maritime profession, my interview with Mr. John Stauffer, the Associate Vice Chancellor at San Jacinto College, the Maritime Campus, he has all the answers. And if you remember, boy, I'll tell you, that was a great campus. So if you have any questions, comments, I would honestly recommend you talk to John Stauffer because he knows what he's talking about. Now, this week, we're going to be talking to the managing partner of Arete Advisors. Now, Arete Advisors, you can find them out there, but remember, Arete Advisor has a little hash in the middle between Arete and Advisor. But my interview with David Tolson, he's got around 12 years of experience in the wealth management, and prior to that, he had 10 years of experience in the strategic transition, mergers, acquisition, divestitures, you name it, he's had his involvement with that. But when he first started out, David was a senior level general manager and with the energy and chemical industry. So his comments, his vision, his insights are quite relevant to the industrial space. Now, I can't continue to go on without just giving a shout out to the sponsors of Industrial Talk, and that would be Leaf Services. If you have any industrial labor, anything to that effect, they're your go-to company. They'll set you up right. And then, of course, Piku Group. Piku Group does some great engineering and construction as well, and they'll also definitely set you up for success. And then finally, Kosmeyer Marine. If you want it in scope and on budget, that is the company for you. So once again, my conversation with Mr. David Tolson sort of involved three main points, three focus, and that is what he brings to the table specifically for clients. And in his interview, we're going to sort of expand upon that purpose and vision of what he does for Arete. And so I was honored, and I'm so glad that you are here, and I'm so glad that we get to be a part of this industrial business. So without further ado, I'd like to give you Mr. David Tolson. He is a managing partner at Arete Advisors. Well, thank you very much for joining the Industrial Talk Podcast. We're coming live from the Gulf Coast Industry Forum, where we had just a great couple of days, and I am honored today to be joined by a gentleman by the name of David Tolson. He's the managing partner of
Arete Advisors.
Now, that's I've had the fortunate opportunity to come in contact with David. We went to the San Jacinto College Marine Operations location, and that's where we met, and we struck up a conversation, and for me personally, I was very intrigued with the services and what you do and what you provide. And but before we go down that road, tell me a little bit about yourself, David, and how did you get into this service here, and just tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Scott. It's been a pleasure to spend some time here with you at the forum. And it's really been a good day and a half. You know, my background originally was a mechanical engineer, worked in the oil and gas industry for about 10 years, major and then I'm independent, and then transitioned into the chemical industry, and then ultimately mergers and acquisition, advisory work in that regard. And through that process, I saw that a lot of mid-sized companies had a lot of the same challenges as the big companies, but not the advice and the resources that some of their bigger counterparts had. And so over the years, I've kind of built a firm that I would describe as a business advisory firm and a wealth management firm. And really in that firm, we do really three things. One is we serve as a resource to help the owners of closely held businesses drive the value of their business, increase the value of business over time. The second thing we do is really help them manage the risk inside their business with respect to human capital, people, keeping them on board, motivated and aligned in the right direction, managing the risk between partners of the business and some of their key folks. And then the third thing we do is we help the owners think about a vision for what's next after the business, help them get prepared for that, help them transition the business, and then ultimately manage their resources post-transition.
What was number one again, please?
We work as a resource with business owners to help them drive the value of their business. What they've got a business, they've got a product, but what really, if they could do differently, would increase the value of their business, make it more sustainable, make it more valuable over time.
Now, you work with mid to small companies, relatively speaking, and you drive those 3 points. Expand a little bit. Now we talked about, and what makes you unique, specifically from this financial perspective, is your background in the industrial space, how you sort of came across doing this. It's not you don't see it often, David, that somebody with your type of background, that industrial pedigree, decides that I'm going to venture on into this type of a financial services solution. Not to say that it's not needed, because I guarantee you it is needed out there, and I guarantee you that what you have, the solutions that you're advocating, are truly needed. But you didn't look at getting into this. You just sort of, here I am.
Right. So I jokingly say that the last time I had a real job, I was the president of a specialty chemical business. We sold that firm to a competitor, and selling to a competitor, the president of that business, they didn't need me. After a short transition period, helping them incorporate the business, transition the business, I started a small M&A advisory shop. And in that, I was working with small businesses.
For people who don't know, M&A is mergers and acquisitions, and companies help companies go through those transition times.
Exactly. And so in that role, I would help looking for companies that were trying to grow, maybe trying to help them raise capital. Maybe they had a business or a division they didn't really need, so helping them think about how to sell that off. Or if they're trying to grow strategically, helping them identify targets to buy and helping them actually buy a plant or a business or a division or a competitor, those kinds of things. And in doing that, mergers and acquisitions is really all about strategy. I mean, the money side of it's almost a commodity. And so as I was working with these business owners, they had a vision for the product or the service or however they're going to make it and deliver it. But what I learned is they didn't really have a vision or strategy about what they're going to do with the business over time, how to manage risk, how to attract human capital, how to drive the value of the business other than make more, sell more. And so kind of over time, I really evolved in how I thought about those clients and said, they could really help. They could really use a lot of help in thinking about, how do I drive the value of business? How do I protect the value of the business? And then how do I realize the value of the business at some later point in time? And so what I've tried to do is really marry what I learned, the experiences I had, the roles I had in the first 25 years of my career, with a new set of tools around strategy and wealth management, those kinds of things, to really bring a package together for the business owner, so they can start with a business plan or business vision, if you will, and then I'll come alongside them and help them kind of fill that out, make it more robust in terms of growing their value, protecting their value, and realizing their value over time.
You talk about over time. Is there? I would imagine that there are situations where you come in contact with business owners. That business owner has started his career digging a ditch, then buying a backhoe, and then elevating and graduating to bigger. And they're personally involved in that business. And do you get a situation where they're just looking to get out, or do you like to come in where there is 2, 3, 4 years, and then there's a transition period? Do you come across people that do that? I mean, I would imagine it runs the gambit.
It does. That's a great way to say it. It does run the gamut. In the best case, the sooner we can get with an owner and start helping them thinking about think about the end in mind and back up from there. That's the best case. Occasionally we'll run across somebody who, they've had an illness or their spouse is ill. They've run across a divorce or they've just, they've been through one too many boom and bust cycles and they're just fed up and somebody called them up and said, hey, I want to buy your business, and so they're ready to go. That's not ideal. We can help a client in that regard, but what is ideal if we can start working with them, early, certainly, maybe 3 to 5 years before they're ready to transition out, and say, what do you want to do with the business? You want to transfer it to somebody inside? You want to sell it? What's the best way to make that happen? What's the best way to create value?
Yeah, that would be the number one step. So if you get ahead of that curve, shall we say, the transition into retirement curve, I don't know what you would call it, but if you were able to provide that type of resource, that value optimization resource sooner on, then it makes sense.
Makes sense. You've got a much higher probability of success. It's less traumatic for the firm, less traumatic for the owner, and doing it in a measured way. You got a much higher probability of success.
How do you communicate the need to these owners who live, breathe, eat their baby? They've had it around. How do you get ahead of that curve to be able to communicate with them and saying, hey, I think you need to consider this?
Yeah, it takes some effort in building trust. You can't be in a hurry. Generally, I start with some real open-ended questions. How's business? Most business owners like to talk about their business, and as through that conversation, you can usually pick up on some things that are kind of, bugging them a little bit, and so you kind of drill down on that a little bit. And again, not being presumptuous that I have all the answers. I do understand a few of the questions, but just really listening to the owner, trying to get in his head and a little bit in his heart about what's important to him. And then just through asking questions, and then you'll find an opportunity to say, well, let's talk a little bit more about that. What keeps you up at night about that? Well, if I could help you relieve that pain point a little bit, would you be interested in that? So that's usually kind of the way we start. And it's rarely a show up, going to agree to a grand plan. It's usually more of a build trust, build relationship over time, try to offer some value without any strings attached, and then as they get to know you and recognize that this guy's really got my best interest in mind, then they tend to open up, and you can move down a path of helping them out
without divulging any information that is confidential. Can you sort of share with us some success stories that you've had in the past of this was a challenging situation, but we did this, that, and this step, and look at this is where we're at?
Sure. First example comes to mind is a client who has a fairly highly technical painting and powder coating business. Been running it kind of your description of started with a shovel and then got a backhoe. Started early in his career in a paint shop, and then moved to a different paint shop. Ended up buying that. We got an SBA loan, bought that out, grew it over time, and now it's a great little business, really high margin. And he knows he needs to think about a transition plan. Doesn't really want to sell it. Wants to transfer it to an insider. So we worked with him to really define what his goals are, what his business is probably worth, and some of the challenges and obstacles that he needs to think about going through. To be successful in that, to finance, his retirement. And so, we're still in process. We're not completely to the goal line there, but we've kind of framed the process, made it in a actionable stepwise plan that he can start executing on.
How long did that efforts take from when you first met the gentleman and said, here we are, to where you're at today, where you're truly putting meat on the bones of this transition plan?
Yeah, we're about 3 years into it.
Is that typical?
It is. What we find is, for a gentleman like that who started the business, it's really hard to separate, the business from the owner. And so there's some financial considerations going on, but there's a lot of kind of emotional decisions going on. I built a legacy. When I leave, what's going to happen to my employees? What's going to happen to my customers? What's going to happen to what I've built? I've done this for the last 35 years. I don't know what I would do next. And so there's a financial aspect to it, but there's a human aspect to it that is more important than the financial aspect.
Well, hold on to that. We're going to be taking a break here. We're going to talk a little bit more about those 3 steps. And I just truly appreciate you, David, taking time out of your schedule. We're here live at the Gulf Coast Industry Forum, where we were just showered with a bunch of great speakers, great content, good people. And so don't go away. Hang tight. We got some more good content coming up after the break. Hey, once again, this is Scott McKenzie with Industrial Talk. If you like what you're listening to, please feel free to sign up for the free podcast as well as the blogs. I'll try to keep it all relevant to your business and hopefully be able to provide some insight into what we do at Industrial Talk and what you do as a professional. Hope to see you soon. Thank you. Welcome back. We are live, Gulf Coast Industry Forum. And once again, I'm with Mr. David Tolson. He's with, I want to make sure,
Arete Advisors.
Arete Advisors. You're also out there on Facebook and LinkedIn and all of the social platforms, and also mention your website. And that is Arete. This would be www.arete, that's ARETE, now dash advisors, ADVISORS.net. They could probably get a lot of information out there too as well. Huh?
Absolutely. I think we've got a decent website. We're also very active on LinkedIn and Twitter. We're not on Facebook, but very active on LinkedIn.
That's right.
Twitter.
That's right.
Yep.
You might want to consider that old Facebook thing. There's a gazillion people that are on it, but that's okay.
That's all right. We'll get that on our list of homework assignments.
Very good, very good. I want to just sort of bridge a little bit about that paint gentleman. Now, does he have any family?
He has 3 adult sons. Interestingly enough, none of them want to be involved in the business, and they all have passions to do other things. And so that leaves him with a dilemma about, who is a logical, capable successor to this business I've built.
Do I need to submit my resume and just for consideration?
I think you should.
Yeah. I'll screw it up in a heartbeat, that's for sure. Now, I want to expand a little bit upon those 3 points that you mentioned in the beginning, the first part of the program. And just real quickly, I'm going to go through them real quick so that we have them. You're going to create, and sort of as a resource, to drive value to the business, and then manage that risk in human capital. That's number 2. And, of course, what is that next step for that owner who has, heart, soul, and mind into this particular business? Where do you transition? What do you mean by the value of the business? What do you do when you're looking at a business like that?
Yeah, if you think about the value of any business, you've got your fundamental business plan, your fundamental products or service, but they're really, maybe you can divide it into kind of 8 drivers of what really affects the value of the business. And the first of those drivers is, what's your customer concentration? If you may have high income but 1 or 2 clients, then that business really isn't all that valuable beyond your income, because if one of those clients goes away for whatever reason, then you've lost,
that's a hit,
50% of your income. Exactly.
Yeah,
so that's probably the first driver. The second driver is your revenue transactional and very, very unpredictable and lumpy, or do you have an income stream that you can count on? Subscription income versus transaction income, and so that's a second driver of income or value. The third driver of value is cash flow. Or do you need a lot of cash to generate your revenue, or can you manage your cash flow readily and easily?
Live and die by that.
Exactly. Exactly. The fourth driver is what do your customers think about you? Do you have kind of raving fans and people that'll endorse you, or is it kind of I sold you one thing one time and probably not much of a chance to do that again?
You burn the bridge on that one, yeah.
Exactly. And will your clients refer you to their sphere of influence, if you will? Those are huge drivers of value. The next one is the business about the owner? And
huge.
Does he make all the decisions? Does he do all the selling, have all the relationships? or does he have a management team that the business, you can take off at noon on Friday and play golf or go fishing, and the business kind of runs without him. And as almost counterintuitive as this is, does he know all of the customers? I mean, you might want to think if he did, that was a good thing, but from a value standpoint, the further he is away,
that's huge. Yeah,
the
that's
further he is away from it, the better off they are.
Yeah.
So those are 5 or 6 of the key drivers that we work with the clients to think about.
I've got to ask the question: if you go on in there and you say, okay, hey owner, you've got to have strategies behind it. If there's any red flags associated with those elements of those 3 points, the value of the business, is there ever any time that you just say, that's it, I can't do it, I walk away?
Well, I mean, that's never happened. I mean, occasionally I could foresee that happen, but there are times where we'll be working with a client and we'll find out that we can kind of identify the questions, but we don't have the answers, and so we work. We have a bench, if you will, of other advisors and other disciplines that we'll bring in, and we'll talk to the owner and say, hey, I think this is your issue, and if the owner agrees with it, hey, this is beyond our pay grade, so to speak. Let's go talk to 2 or 3 people in this area. Maybe it's improving your accounting system, or maybe it's a technical issue in the back part of the plant that's eating up cash flow and all those kinds of things. So we'll take it as far as we can get it, but we know what we know and we know what we don't know. So when we get to that point, if we think that the owner is engaged, but we can't necessarily solve the problem, then we'll find that additional resource to help them solve that problem.
So really, if somebody comes to you and say, hey, I have this desire, it's a desire. I want to transition. I want to do this. I want to lay the foundation. I want to create this. So there's really nothing that you've come in contact or across where you just say, I can't. You're not dealing with the Medellin cartel or anything like that.
Right,
it's like,
exactly.
Back off. Okay.
Right.
And now, number 2, you're talking about managing risk, this human capital side. What do you mean by that?
Well, one of the things we tell owners, after we've gotten to know them a little bit, is you pursue your business plan, and we'll help you develop a plan for your business. And really, that centers around the human capital piece. Is most businesses at some point need employees, and so you have to attract and retain those employees. And some of that's salary, but some of that's benefits and retirement plans and other things like that. So we can help put those things in place. Most businesses eventually will get an employee or a group of employees that you want to treat a little differently than the rank and file. You want to put glue in the seats. You want to create an alignment and owner-like behavior, but you don't necessarily want to give away stock or ownership in your private company. You pay them a cash bonus, then you've kind of created a free agent as soon as you give them that bonus check. And so what we help design is incentive plans, executive incentive plans that create owner-like behavior without diluting your stock and without taking up as much of your cash flow. And so you could have one set of measures or goals for the persons who run sales. You could have a different set of 6 or 8 objectives for the persons who run operations. And so you can tailor those in a way to create that owner-like behavior that you're looking for. And then kind of the next phase beyond that is, if most small companies, they may have a key employer or two. If something happened to them in a negative way, it would have an adverse effect on the business. So we help think about managing key employee risk. And then if you've got a business partner, you may be very aligned about vision, but over time one of you may want to leave the business before the other. There may be a health issue or worse that comes along that requires one of the owners to leave before the other. And so we try to help owners think about how they manage that owner risk when by desire or by an act of God, one of them leaves the business before the other does.
And I would imagine, in just like, maybe I don't have as a big a challenge, but so a lot of these guys, they've done this forever, right? And I would imagine the next step that I've I've got the value of the business. I've got things all sort of processed out, and then it's all working really efficiently. And then I've dealt with that risk, number 2, of course, and I've laid that out through your services and all that good stuff. Now it's time to make that decision. Do you have any transition? Because I can't imagine a lot of these owners just going cold turkey. Like yesterday, I was working and answering emails, and today I'm golfing.
Right.
Oh my gosh, I can only imagine what that's like.
Right. That's definitely a process. So we've talked about increasing the value of business, preserving the value of the business, and then the third is kind of it's the grand dragon. It's realizing the value of your business, and in the back of your mind, every owner knows that they're going to leave their business at some point in time. Generally, they don't like to think about it for a variety of reasons. So what we try to do is develop trust, develop a relationship, and really head them down a process that helps them think about those things. And so if we can do the things about increasing the value of business, preserving the value of business, that takes a little pressure off timing. And so the owner can then get comfortable that the business is going to survive after they're gone. They can get confidence and clarity that, hey, this thing I've created is valuable and maybe even more valuable than I originally thought. And so then in a measured and paced way, they can take a deep breath and then think about, okay, what's next? Do I want to spend more time with my spouse, my kids, my grandkids, some cause or charity?
Do you provide some suggestions? Okay, you'd be good on a boat.
Yeah.
So fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you do that?
Well, interestingly enough, I took a group of clients and prospects on a sporting clay event. About a year ago. Well, it was a lot of fun. And one of the gentlemen with us had been a CFO or COO of a bank, and he had just retired. And he went with us. And sporting clay, you generally go to 10 different stations and shoot 5 pair. And on about the 3rd or 4th station, he said, Dave, I've just realized what I want to do with my time in retirement. So we kind of accidentally gave him a suggestion on
sporting
what to
clay.
do. Yeah, exactly.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah, that was kind of fun. But yeah, so we don't have all the answers. We try to help structure, people discovering what's important to them.
But if you get a sort of a seasoning time of 3+ years, hopefully the individual is thinking, okay, I know where I'm going with this. I know that I'm eventually going to have to make that decision, and so I'm going to at least mentally begin preparing, whether it happens or not. It is what it is. Just hold on to that thought. We're going to have to break again. Do not go away. We're going to summarize these points. We're going to wrap it up. We're coming live from the Gulf Coast Industry Forum, where we had just such a great time getting some great information from incredible leaders in the Texas state and around this particular area, and all the stuff that's going on, the commerce that's happening. So stay tuned, hang tight. We'll be right back. Hi, this is Scott McKenzie with Industrial Talk. I like to learn and I like to have fun. And when I can put them both together, learning and having fun, well, that's a match made in heaven. That's why I put together a drawing for Louisiana Fish Excursion, as well as the 2018 Mardi Gras once-in-a-lifetime event. You can find more about this information, about this 2 wonderful opportunities at the Industrial Talk website at industrialtalk.com. Well, thank you very much for sticking with us. And once again, we are coming live from the Gulf Coast Industry Forum. I'm having a grand time talking to Mr. David Tolson. He's the managing partner at Arete. It's going to kill me.
That's all right.
So I'm a product of public school. I have a hard time sometimes. It is what it is. And you can find a lot of great information out there. Of course, they're on LinkedIn. I think you were going to confirm whether you got a Instagram or some other site. They got a website,
LinkedIn, and Twitter. And based on your advice, we're gonna pursue Facebook and maybe even Instagram.
Yeah. Why not? It's
exactly.
Incrementally from a cost point of view. You just got to do it, right? It's not. It's a lot of fun, man. I'll follow you. How's that?
There you go. At least one, huh?
So we've been talking really, David has been talking specifically about really key. If I am a guy that has a business, which I do, and then I'm ready, which I'm not, which I'm ready to transition and start to really lay that foundation out of saying I want to make sure that I optimize the value, I want to protect whatever value, and then I start transitioning into the next chapter in my life. David has come down with some really great content, really good information, and once again, I'm going to summarize it up. But when we start breaking down, by the way, we got people cleaning up after us because we're the last ones out here, and people are talking on. So if you heard that, disregard it. And so we've got some values that we talk about: the customer, retention, cash flow, all of that good stuff that leads up to those 3 points. Is there anything else, David, as the managing partner of your firm? Because for me personally, I'm intrigued. I think it's especially in a market like this where you've got just people that have there's tons of business that fall into that category where.
Absolutely. Yep.
How do you fit? Now we're at this great conference here. Now this is a great networking opportunity. Are there individuals that fall into that category that come to these events and that you can sit there and go, okay, let me get to know them?
Yeah. So given my background as an engineer and working in the energy and chemical and industrial services business, I have a natural affinity to organizations like this and to business owners that would attend an organization like this. So I spend a lot of time, trying to develop relationships through manufacturing and chemical and industrial services organizations. They're bankers, they're CPAs, and they're attorneys. So that's really kind of how we try to get to know people. And if I can genuinely be interested in a business owner, another business, that'll go a long way in developing a relationship where we can actually help them through those 3 phases: increasing the value, preserving the value, and realizing the value.
Do you do any public speaking?
I do.
It's good.
What I'll do is with some of the bankers that I work with, they'll invite some of their clients, and we'll have a talk on one or all 3 of those components: the increasing value, preserving value, and realizing value. Trade associations we've got an upcoming event with a trade association of folks that work in the automotive industry, and so organizations like that where we can have a kind of a small group of and kind of talk about these things and kind of frame what we do for them, and then we follow up with that with kind of one-on-one discussions and see if we can really dig in and help individual business owners. Yeah,
what a fertile market. I mean, I just can only imagine how many people fall into that category and the dynamics associated with that, and being a business person myself, that opportunity to evaluate a business and get into it, it's like the holy grail of business, being able to say, yeah, I can do this and look at this and do it. That's fascinating, my friend. I really appreciate that.
And for me, I get to live vicariously through my clients.
Yep.
And if you think about statistically what the small businesses do for our economy in terms of employment and the percentage of GDP, it's really rewarding and fun for me to be able to come alongside somebody, develop a relationship with them, help them realize their dream, and then be a part of their success over time is really very rewarding for what we do.
Yeah, and so when you come out with your book, can I buy it?
Absolutely.
Amazon, baby. Amazon.
Absolutely.
That's right. Once again, I really want to thank David here, spending time with us, sharing with us the value proposition of what he brings to the table for an industry that is, from my perspective, in need of those services, and sharing with us also the those 3 points, which I'll make sure that I highlight, of course. And thank you. I really appreciate your time, because this is great. And we're, like I said, we're live from the Gulf Coast Industry Forum. A lot of great people, and I was able to have an opportunity to meet you and get to know you, and hopefully we'll do some more stuff in the future.
Well, thank you, Scott. It's been great to get to know you, and this has been very fun, just having a little chat with you over the radio.
It's a great time. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll take a break, and we'll be right back. Hey, thank you very much for joining the Industrial Talk podcast. thank you for listening and giving your support to the fine men and women who have been on the podcast. They're all wonderful, and they are all passionate about what they do. Special thank you to Mr. David Tolson, the managing partner with Arete Advisors. I thank you very much for your time, effort, and really enjoyed getting to know you. If you have any interest in what David is talking about, please, I will be posting all this information out there on the old World Wide Web, and you'll be able to get a hold of him. He's got a lot of insight, a lot of capabilities, and I think that he will set you up straight. So on my behalf of Industrial Talk, I truly appreciate you being here, and I'll see you next week with another exciting interview. Take care and be safe out there.